You are God, our King, our Maker, our Sustainer, our Source, and our Resource. The list goes on and on. You are everything to us. We thank you for this time together. Lord, this media outlet called TAN TV. And these guests, including myself, that are here to deliberate, to discuss, to share in and, our ideas and give a voice to all of the craziness that has been going on in our community all over the country. And really, help us, Lord, guide us. Pray that everything we do will be meaningful and purposeful and honoring to you. Lord, help us in this conversation to lift up what is good and come away with ideas and plan even and to execute that we might do better. Bless everyone on here, our families. We thank you. In your name we pray. Amen.
Hello and welcome to TAN TV, the African American Network, where we have a local feel and a global reach. Today's episode of In the Room is called Changing with the Times. And today we have normally as we do on TAN TV, we have assembled a distinguished guest panelist. Uh, and today we're going to talk about the changing of the times with a little emphasis on some of these mass shootings, y'all. And I'm your host, Vance Bradford, along with my co-host, as you see, Mr. Philip Townsend. How you doing, Phil?
Doing just fine, Vance. How
Good,
about
good. Before we go on, I definitely want to say, Pastor Brown, thank
Yes,
you
sir.
for opening us with that prayer to get things rolling. So we got Pastor Brown with us. I got my co-host, Mr. Philip Townsend. And we also have assembled three other guests that we'll like to bring in and introduce to the TAN TV audience, and we'll get our conversation going. Our first panelist, she was born in Taylor, Texas. She now lives in San Antonio, Texas. She's a graduate of Reagan High School and also the University of Texas. And she also has a JD degree from St. Mary's School of Law. Let's welcome the Honorable Judge Yolanda Huff. How you doing, Ms. Huff?
I'm doing great. Thank you guys for having me.
Great for joining us. Now, before I bring on one of our other panelists, I'd like to ask you a quick question, and maybe you can just add to it. It says here that you preside over the Bexar County District Court number 12.
Well, it's a county court,
Okay.
Court 12. It's a criminal misdemeanor bench.
Okay, yes, I want to a little bit tell us what's going on.
I hear
Court
cases
12.
like DWIs, possession of marijuana, theft cases, domestic violence, cases of that nature. And I also preside over the mental health court for Bexar County. The mental health court it's a specialty court. It deals with people that enter the judiciary with a mental health issues such as bipolar, schizophrenia, severe depression, or anxiety, PTSD. And if they want true help, it's a program. It's 12 months long. We can give them help in this program called the Mental Health Court. Now, Bexar County has 14 specialty courts dealing with anything from drugs. We have two veterans, felony one, a misdemeanor one. I chair that coalition. It's called the Bexar County Special Courts Bexar County Special Courts Coalition. That all the special courts band together and we deal with issues. So me presiding over the mental health court, I do chair that coalition.
Well, thank you and welcome. Thank you. Looking forward to our conversation. Okay. Our next guest I want to bring in. Matter of fact, he's born and raised on the East Side. He's a father, a grandfather. He's a military, U.S. Army veteran. He's been part of the San Antonio Police Department since 2007. He's been working with the Family Assistance Team for 10 years. And he also works for an acronym, we'll be asking about this, called SAFE, at the East Side substation. Ladies and gentlemen, this Officer Alonzo Harden.
All right.
How you doing, sir?
Hey, I'm doing very well. Thank you for the invite, and as you said, to those that are joining us this evening, I'm Officer Alonzo Harden from San Antonio, and I'm just excited to be here and have this dialogue and see how we can collaborate and come up with ideas and maybe even solutions to help our communities. So when we talk about safe, I'm sure that question will come up a little bit later, and I'll answer it then, exactly what that acronym stands for. But once again, thank you for the invite, and I look forward to this conversation.
Okay. So that was one thing I did wanted to bring up. So you're going to let us know what safe is, and
Absolutely.
Also that family assistance. That's fine. That's we beautiful.
Okay, great. I didn't know how much time we got. Well, let's back up to safe.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
The acronym itself is SAFFE, and what that stands for is San Antonio Fear-Free Environment. Throughout the city of San Antonio, we have 6 substations, and each of them have a safe unit. Our primary goal and response and objective in the community is to reach out in the community, continue to be that vocal piece for not only our citizens, but for the police department. Working hand in hand with community initiatives, nonprofits, city council, HOAs, all the intricate and important ingredients in how a community is being effective out there. We are a part of that. Many programs within the SAFE unit. Like I mentioned before, we work closely with our homeowners association, our city council, but then there's things that we reach out into the community. Me specifically, I'm what is considered a school service officer within the SAFE unit. So within District 2 and District 3, from elementary school all the way to high school to include all charter schools, not only do we go in there and do career day presentations, but we just go by and visit. And unfortunately, with the change of times, what I'm finding myself out doing now is going to these campuses and ensuring that they're secure by just, going around, seeing if the doors are locked or whatever the case may be, just to increase that awareness. And I'm sure that we're going to discuss that a little bit later. Now, on the family assistance side of things, family assistance, I've been a family assistance officer for about the last 10, 11 years. And real quickly, basically what that is, anytime an officer is injured catastrophically or even a loss of life in the line of duty, we family assistance officers go in, we help to plan funerals, hospital arrangements, air and flight arrangements for family members that may live out of town. But quite simply, what we do is we go in and we allow that family a time to grieve should they lose an officer in the line of duty. And again, that goes from planning of the funeral and a continued relationship, because some of these kids are losing their moms and dads at a very young age. So we follow them along throughout their educational career on into the collegiate. And so we stay in contact with our fallen officers. So family assistance is a big part of the San Antonio Police Department, and I'm honored to be in both, not only SAFE, but as well as the family assistance. 2 very important roles that I feel that are just key in San Antonio Police Department. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Great information. Okay, so let's keep bringing our panelists in. Our next panelist, you heard his voice. The first thing that started our show, prayer. He's the pastor at True Vision Church. True Vision has 2 campuses, and they're currently building a 3rd campus. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Pastor Michael Brown. How you doing, sir?
Oh, I'm well. How are you doing, sir? Mr. Vance?
Good. And we thank you for opening us up once again for a great prayer to get us started.
Thank you, man. Anytime.
Yes, sir. Now, I do want to ask you a quick question. Could you just elaborate a little bit I see you have 2 campuses and working on a third. And maybe you can tell us a little bit about your outreach programs that you have. Did we hear Pastor Brown?
Well, let me correct that a little bit. We have 2 campuses, and
we good, baby. Yes, sir.
No, just 2 campuses, just a new campus. That's the second move into new. So, man, we are nothing grand or great or innovative about what we're doing. We try to be the Lord's church. We try to be connected with our members. We do. Community is not in our name. That is who we are. We are a community church. Our doors are open. We have food programs that we do every month, and we spend good money to share food in our community, make sure people, clothes, the food, you name it. We have a ministry that assists people who are hurting, whether it's to utility bills or mortgage issues, that kind of thing. We have a counseling ministry that people, sure, premarital counseling, but even that, crisis situations, grief situations. We try to do what we can. We have a financial. We connect with. Have you ever heard of Dave? We connect with his financial peace university. We do classes with that. So these are things that we do in our members, but these are things that we've been allowed any and everyone to be a part of to help us. That's just a few things, and I'll just kind of leave it there for now.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Thank you, sir. We looking forward to our conversation here.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Okay. Yes, sir. Now, at least we have a former city councilman. He's been a community activist since the age of 19 and doing great things on that east side of San Antonio. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome John Sanders. How you doing, sir? Can we hear him?
Hello.
Can you hear us, Mr. Sanders? Okay. Well, let's move on. We'll probably get his. I think they're having a little technical difficulty on it. Can you hear me? Can you guys hear me? Mr. Sanders? Okay.
I believe his audio connection is having some issues.
Okay. So we do have everybody. So that's our distinguished panel.
I can hear you.
Okay. There you go. We hear you, sir.
I don't believe he can hear us.
Yeah.
You can hear us? Okay. What we'd like to know, as a community activist, can you give us something you was very proud of that you accomplished there on the east side? Yeah, we have problems here. Okay. Mr. Sanders, we'll come back to you. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's our panel. We have the Honorable Judge Yolanda Huff. We have Officer Alonzo Harden. We have Pastor Michael Brown. And we also have former Councilman, Mr. John Sanders. Okay. Since I got you guys all here together, I would like to start my first question off to you guys that I would like to, each one of you chime in and have a chance to answer it and give us your opinion and how you feel about this. And we're going to start with Judge Huff. We'll have you start, and we'll have you followed by Pastor Brown, and then we'll have John Sanders, Chief Alonzo Harden. You close this first question, okay? And it's a simple question, pretty general here. What are your thoughts on how the law enforcement handled Uvalde. And we want to start with you, Judge Huff.
Well, I mean, I don't. I'm looking at it just like you guys are looking at it, just like the whole world is looking at it. What we're saying that, and what we, the community, is seeing that there was this delay in going in there to, to really, I guess, attack, um, confront the situation. So I don't like it, but I mean, I am willing to wait and give everyone the benefit of the doubt to see how this. I've heard, and I don't even know if this is true, that the Justice Department the investigation, but then I heard later Senator Roland Gutierrez say that it turned into a criminal investigation. The DA's office had taken over, so I don't know which is true, but me just sitting home on my couch listening and hearing what's going on, on its face, it did not look, it was not a good look for the, I can say this for the police department there.
Thank you, ma'am.
You ready for me?
Yes, yes, sir.
Like Judge Huff, it's hard to have a mature, intelligent thought about the situation because the information has been so shoddy. It's one thing was said here, another thing was said here. I guess like everyone else, I'm watching, I'm waiting, trying to get the story, the whole story. What's the real truth? From what I'm hearing now, first of all, my thought is that it's a shame as we think about what has happened to these young people, these teachers, these families. I'm going to say it, even though it's been diluted and polluted. Our thoughts and prayers are with them. There's nothing wrong with thinking about them and praying for them, but certainly we've got to do more than that. I'm sure we'll get into that. But even just with the information of how it's coming out, it is a shame that we are not communicating well, the different agencies coming together to really find out what is happening, what is going on. I think they owe it to those families, they owe it to that community, they owe it to all of us at large, and hopefully we'll learn some lessons, and Uvalde will learn some lessons, stringing things together and really coming together to communicate. So my thought is right now it's a mess, but hopefully as we learn more, we'll have a more mature thought about that. I can't hear you.
Vance, are you muted?
My bad. I'm sorry, Officer Harden. Can we get you to shut it down? And before you start, I think we're getting a little feedback, and I think if we can just mute ourselves and then remember to unmute it when we're talking, because we're getting a little feedback on. Okay, so we can do that. Thanks, y'all.
Good. I hope you guys can hear me. There was just some key things that were shared here. The whole story is important. What's really sad to me, and we're speaking on just our opinions of this event. I am not speaking on behalf of the San Antonio Police Department. The question was asked, and what is my opinion? It is sad that we have to learn more because of the tragedy. So where do we go from there? The title of this speaking is Changing with the Times. The thoughts on law enforcement and how they reacted. One thing I would like to share is that across the board, training is very different nationwide. And so without being there, I don't know their particular protocol, what it was that they needed to address, whether it was a threat, whatever the case may be. Everybody's training may be different or is different. I'll say that. And as far as how they respond, do I think that should be more streamlined with all law enforcement agencies? And unfortunately, we're having to get our training because we're losing our children to these mass shooters or these other events. As we were just mentioning before we started, Tennessee just had another mass shooting. So to speak specifically on how I feel or what my thoughts on law enforcement in Uvalde and how they handled it. One, I wasn't there. Two, I do not know their protocol. And yeah, I'm just not, I'm not at liberty to speak on how they should have or may not have handled that situation. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that. Yes, sir. Mr. Sanders, do we have you back? We were talking, I had asked the other panelists, what are your thoughts on how the law enforcement handled the Uvalde situation? Can you hear us, sir? Okay. I think we're gonna work on it. We're gonna work on it. We're gonna move on, okay? And panelists, I want to thank you for sharing your opinion, your thoughts on that question. I know it's a tough question. Like I said, like Judge Huff mentioned, we're all going to take a wait and see attitude and just see and learn. Hopefully we can learn a great deal from this situation, even though there were some lives that had to be sacrificed in this situation. So let's continue now. We're going to start getting down to some nuts and bolts and the meat. And I would like to start it off, Officer Harden. We was told that you may have a presentation that you would like to address and give to us in reference to these situations that happened in Buffalo and Uvalde as far as mass shootings and everything. Am I correct?
That you are. I'm prepared to just do a discussion.
There you go.
I'm new to this streaming or what. I don't even know this new format. Right when I get used to Zoom, y'all switching it up on me. So,
oh no, but you're looking good.
Know. Okay. So when I was asked to do this, I was pretty excited. But let's just jump right into it because how it starts off with these mass shootings. What needs to happen is a civilian response. So there has been a class that has been developed, a PowerPoint presentation, and I am going to do my best at sharing as much as information as I can. And please understand that this is something that the San Antonio Police Department would love to partner with organizations that are out there listening that are maybe in our communities to where we can come out and give this type of training so that you can get the full gamut of what it is that we're actually trying to ensure our citizens, churches, schools have a better idea of. So it's called CRAZE, Civilian Response to an Active Shooter Event. Okay. This training is not new. It was not created last week or last year. But as time has gone on, statistics and things have gotten better. So the question we'll start off this evening is, hey, what do you do as a civilian in the event of a shooter? There is a frame of mind that we need to help our citizens get past, and that is that denial mode. So there are three types of response that we'll be discussing briefly. That's that denial, that deliberation, and that decisive moment. And what do I mean by denial? Is that a gunshot? Are you sure that's a gunshot? We have to get past that point, especially in these mass shootings that we are hearing about across the media. So those moments of getting or transitioning your brain from the denial moment to that deliberation moment are so key and so vital. As I'll share here a little bit later, we know that the average response time for first responders to respond to a mass shooting is now roughly almost 6 minutes. So that next thing that I want to just share with you guys is the deliberation part of it. the avoid, the deny, and the defend. That deliberation. What are you going to do? As a common practice, on the avoid part, this might seem a little awkward and weird, but the next time you go into a restaurant or the next time you go into an auditorium, know your surroundings. That's called situational awareness. Just play a game. How many exits are there? About how many people do you think is in this building? Where am I going to go? Civilian response to an active shooter. Unfortunately, we have to have a mindset like that nowadays. So being able to be aware of the situational awareness, if possible, leave ASAP. And again, as I mentioned before, know your exits. And by all means, we live in a technology age where everybody's got a cell phone. Get on that 911 and call for emergency assistance. What you're going to avoid, not necessarily avoid, but if there was one incident, I believe a couple of years ago, where it was at a club and there was a fire and everybody was going to the front door because that's the door that they remember to be coming into. So what I share is, or what has been shared is, always consider secondary exits, and again, situational awareness is what is key to maybe increasing your survival. Deny, especially when you're in churches, buildings, lock them doors, lights out of sight. There is statistical information that shows that when a door is locked, a person that is a threat is less likely to take the time to try to jimmy open that door and get past that fortress, so to speak. So that's just something else to be mindful of. Lights out. If you can't see a target, you can't shoot the target. But we all know that what is also key is your mental mind state when this is all going on. But in schools, what our training teaches is on that deny part, barricade. We teach them how to use the desk, how to use the tables, how to use the chairs, how to use certain things to deny entry should that active shooter be approaching their room. And again, as I said, this cannot happen during a denial. You have to get into that deliberation mode and into that decisive moment. So the other thing that I wanted to share with you guys is, where am I at? There might be a time, in the very beginning, it was communicated that, you might have heard things of playing dead and hoping and hiding. No, we don't want you to do that. That's that defend part. You have to have that mental mindset or that warrior mindset. As many police officers will don that mindset in the morning when they leave their loved ones at home, knowing that there's a strong possibility that they may not return. But you have that mental fortitude of telling yourself that I am coming home. So in these situations, it's that mental awareness that I mentioned before, that you have to have that mental fortitude of repeating to yourself that you are going to be going home. And again, there's a lot more information that can be shared on this, but these are just some quick highlights that I wanted to share. Again, I'm at the East Side substation, right over on the heart of the East Side. I work in the safe unit. I would love to stop by and give a more elaborate and detailed and some scenario-based instruction that we can offer to anyone who is willing to experience some of this training. But I'll leave you with this. The important thing to remember should you find yourself in a situation like that. And it's really unfortunate that we even have to have that type of conversation. But as the times change, we must change in our thought process of how we're going to take care of ourselves. But again, being able to get out of that denial mode very quickly, stepping into that deliberation, what am I going to do? And then that decisive moment, actually acting on what it is, the decision that you made, that right there has more chances of saving your life in the event of an active shooter. Get out of denial, get into that deliberation, and make that decisive movement. Thank you for letting me share.
Phil, I think you muted. Phil.
Did y'all hear me?
Hi, yes.
Yeah, we heard you, Chief. Okay.
Yes, Chief Harden. We know that there was a lot of chaos going on in with the mass shooting in Uvalde, and there are a lot of questions that are still up in the air. But something that we know that did take place is that the school police officer was the one who assumed command of this event, and you had other law enforcement agencies there. Um, I guess my question is, why do you believe that he ended up being the designated in charge person when you had the Uvalde Police Department and Border Patrol agents and all there?
As I mentioned before, protocol, their training, how they would approach that situation. But initially, being the first officer on the scene, quite frankly, you are going to, it should be understood that you're going to be the handling officer until a command site or an incident command site is organized. But of course, until then that happens, then yes, maybe that officer was in charge, not necessarily as the incident played out that he remained in charge. And you mentioned several different other agencies. You know, that in itself is a challenge because different agencies train different ways. How far are they out to respond? Where is this Border Patrol agency that you mentioned, or the Highway State Trooper, or these specialized forces? And let's keep in mind, this was a small town. So I would only imagine how large that police department is, what type of training that they may have went through. But again, to speak on their training, on their protocol, and how that officer should have handled that situation, I cannot do that.
Okay, that's fair, but a little more insight to it is that they actually have their own SWAT team. It's the issue at hand there is that some of the members are part-time, a third of them, and that played a part in that. And you know, Chief Arredondo, the school officer, he handled that situation throughout, and part of the issue, according to State Senator, is that he used the police landline and didn't even have a radio. So the communication was bad, and he also made the judgment to call it a barricaded situation, even though there was active gunfire being heard. But there's federal gun, the FBI came out with a guideline that should be a universal standard, that now it's not to wait. Anytime there's an active shooting situation, law enforcement is to go in immediately and try and resolve that situation. But I'd like to ask you, Judge Huff, about any type of criminal liability that may be here for any of the officers. You're muted.
You muted.
Okay. I tried to. Am I unmuted now?
Yes.
Okay, great. That would be just. I really couldn't answer that question because, like we were, like I said earlier, in this situation, it's still, to me, it's still so in flux. That nothing is settled down yet. We wouldn't know. I mean, I don't. We truly don't even know. Like some things that were mentioned earlier, like why did they do this? Who was truly in charge? Who's doing the investigation? And so, I think it would be like I could not speak on if any criminal liability would um would come out of a situation like this. Well, I mean, and the shooter is dead. It does really bewilder me why the DA would be in charge of the investigation when the perpetrator is dead. But there you have it. But to answer your question head on, like I don't know, I could not answer that question of if any criminal liability would come out from any officers. I'm listening to the news. There's a very interesting case that happened here in Texas, 85 miles from us. And I can see that lawsuits are already starting to be filed. People are already starting getting attorneys. Sure, you guys have seen that too.
Yes. Thank you. Mr. Sanders, can you hear me? Mr. Sanders, can you hear me? Well, I'll move to you, Pastor Brown. Just how much does this put on you as uh, uh, being a pastor and a community organizer, just trying to get resources and just outreach to these communities and families?
Well, let me say this first, as I hear us talking about the school, and I've heard this term, and Al, I think you know this term, schools being soft targets. I would think that a church is also a somewhat of a soft target. You think of a gathering of the schools, a foremost gathering of children all week long. We have a gathering of people every week and across the nation, and so this really hits home to us as we consider as it relates to our security at the church. And Al, thank you for your words, and definitely, Chief, want to talk with you about coming to our place and maybe bringing some other pastors and congregants together to hear how to strategize, how we can the denial piece, the how when if something happens, how are we to move. And I want to hear more about that. And I think more of us should hear that because we all have to share in helping each other out to be safe. Now, as it relates to resources, I know everyone wants to collapse as it relates to resources, and I know there are things that are already going on. There's so many funds that are being taken up for these efforts, and I know that one of the funeral homes is, kind of really helping out in that area. I think there's a victim assist kind of thing going on as well. So right now, True Vision Church has not joined in and sending money. We've done that with other situations. And so we kind of gauge them on how we want to do this. Because there's so many things going on that we send money to. You just can't, everybody can't jump on one situation. So we've stepped back and we're just kind of monitoring and seeing where a need might be, where a hole might be, and definitely willing to do that. But I see so many agencies already down in Uvalde, and I don't want to crowd that situation. So we have not personally, as a church, done anything towards Uvalde other than we've prayed about the situation and we are ready to do something. Again, we have a ministry and we have funds in the coffers of this ministry that is designed for just helping people out. And I think it's like maybe right now a few $1,000s in that, just waiting to help people out. We do it all the time and on an ongoing basis, but we don't jump on every crisis. We can't. Now, I did make a personal visit to the school. I made a personal visit to Uvalde to be there to bring some awareness of it. Can I say this? I encourage, when I went, my wife and I, we were the only, at that moment, black faces in the crowd. And I came back to my church and challenged them. I challenged our fraternity groups and our sorority groups. I challenged our biker groups. I challenged our trail ride groups. And here's why I did that. 2020, George Floyd situation. I saw people of all races, cultures, marching, you know, on behalf of our community. And I think we need to join the conversation. And when it's another community hurting, going through, we should have a presence there. And so I'm challenging all of us. Everybody can't go down there. I get that. But I thought that when my wife and I went there to only see, just us being there at the moment, I'm like, wow, that's kind of. And then I talked to a lot of people, no, they haven't gone, haven't done anything. I think we do need to show our faces because if we want folk to be there and have our backs, we got to have their backs.
Exactly. The U.S. is it represents 5% of the world population, but yet we represent 46% of all civilian-owned weapons. That's an incredible number. For every 100 people in the U.S., there's 120.5% weapons. So we have, what's that? Over 440 million weapons in the U.S. to our, 330% of 340 million people in the population. That's just incredible. Let me ask you, Chief Harden, how do we get control of this whole gun proliferation?
For our listening audience, let me make a correction real quick. I appreciate the chief part, but I am an officer. I am patrolman. I don't want nothing getting back in. I have to be answering. I am an officer, a patrolman, and I love working on the east side. That's why I want to stay Monday morning.
Well, Chief, we knew you were an officer, but
okay,
today you're chief.
All right. I just want this. I don't know who's listening. I just want them to understand that.
Okay. We knew you were an officer.
Okay. And your question
on you.
Could you repeat that question one more time? I'm sorry.
Yes, I was just given the stats. If you'd like for me to do the stats again?
No.
My question was really just how do we get control of this whole massive gun proliferation that we have in the U.S. because our laws are only getting more laxed, even though there are more killings and more murders. And I'm not talking about mass shootings. I'm just talking about gun crimes in general. And instead of strictening of the laws, it seems like we have these states that just keep relaxing them more and more and more. So what can we do, given that these states are relaxing these laws? What can we do to try and get some type of control over this situation?
Officer Harden speaking here. To get some kind of control, give it back to God and bring him in here. He's been absent in a lot of things. But we as citizens, we have elected these officials to make these types of decisions. Therefore, how do we do this gun control? Because you can have some who say guns don't kill people, people kill people. Guns have been around since before I was even born. Why all of a sudden is it such an issue? You can throw in the pot mental health. You could throw in the pot life trajectory moments. You could throw in the pot. You have law-abiding citizens who purchase and train and pass that on to their children of how to properly use weapons. We could do all that and then throw in the pot as well, where criminals are going to get weapons by any means. something that just happened just the other day. I came across a weapon, and this is why I know it's serious, just like what you're saying. So this weapon I recovered was a stolen weapon in 2011, and it was stolen from Maryland, but it's here in Texas. So that gun has been in circulation for all of these years, and it has made its way from Maryland to San Antonio, Texas. So whatever officials that are out there and whatever, changing it to 21, in my opinion, that's a step in the right direction. That could help, but it's bigger than just that. Gun awareness, gun responsibility, but from a police point, from a police point, I may think second, and I'm being quite honest. This is the human part of me. But if you're expecting me to go inside and take somebody's weapons from them, I say to you, if you make that decision, you be the first on the stack to go into that house and remove those weapons, because you're going to be met with some unhappy people. But to answer your question, just straight up, I cannot answer that question alone. And that's why we elect our government officials to come together and make a decision that's going to be best, not only for the government, but the citizens who put them in that seat, and make these necessary changes. But again, I'd like to point out it's a sad day, and it's a sad way that we must get educated because of a tragedy such as Uvalde and all those that have happened before. What I would like to see is something done that's proactive. And I tell you what I've seen in my police experience is that events like this that come about, everybody gets emotional. Social media gets all hyped up, and we come up with these ideas and methods of how we're going to do this. In about 6 or 7 months, it's going to die down and everything is going to be quiet again. I guarantee it. I've seen it happen too many times until there's another shooting incident. And then we're going to be talking about what should we do with guns and all that. If we're going to do something, let's stop having this conversation, is what I would say to our elected officials and those that are out there. One way is not the exact way and ultimate way, but collective minds coming together and making a decision that would best support the nation. It's not an easy. It's not going to be an easy task at hand to come up with that. But I will just share, and I'll end with this. Gun violence is bad. I'm tired of going to funerals here, specifically on the East Side, because I'm all about my community, my city, and having to go and visit with these mothers who have lost their children to senseless violence. Not just mass shootings, but this gun violence on the streets. My challenge is not only to those that were mentioned earlier about Pastor Brown, but to those that are out there and you're engaged in this legal gun activity. Put the guns down. Put the guns down and stop the violence. And as it was mentioned also about Pastor Brown, we need to show our faces in the community, be accountable to ourselves and then to each other. And we are the change in this community. Actually, it doesn't have to be relied just on the government. Put them guns down and grab each other's hand, and let's do it this way. The senseless killing is too much. Every day is someone is dying to gun violence, and it just needs to stop. But we need to stop it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad you mentioned that about the elected leaders and their role in this. I believe that I can tie this in to systemic racism. I think for so long we've looked at Black and brown communities and have become numb to the violent activities that have gone happened in those communities, and as a whole, we've become apathetic as a country to that type of thinking. And my belief is that when to bring a point that you mentioned, Chief Harden, is that I believe that when apathy is up, empathy is down. Positive apathy, negative equals negative empathy. And I think because you just mentioned that that whole apathetic nature that's there, it just permeates any of these situations. And like you said, there is a heightened sense of empathy. But as you mentioned, 6 months later, that apathy comes in and the empathy wanes. And I just think that the elected leaders need to be held responsible for this, because this puts a lot of pressure on people like you, Pastor Brown, and the type of things that you have to do in counseling. And let me ask you this. The counseling programs and things that you offer, is this really a lot of clergy counseling, or does your church have some of the professional counseling people that handle some of your situations? I believe you're muted, Pastor Brown.
I'm on. Hello. Are we good?
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I think
Okay.
the host had me muted.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a combination. We have a team of people who are in that profession, and they volunteer their time with certain classes they do at the church. So we have a combination. I will do some, but that's more sometimes on the family situation, marriage, parents, children. But when it comes to something a little deeper, we have more professionals, somewhat involved in that.
Okay, that's excellent. That's excellent. Um, you know, let me get back to you, Chief Harden, for a moment. Um, what do you, I guess when I look at a situation and I hear elected officials saying, "We back the blue, we back the blue," but yet you do everything in your power to make gun ownership easier and easier, putting the very officers that you say you back, putting them in an undermanned situation. You're literally going in to fight an assault weapon with your standard issue handgun. Do any of you, initially, I know that police agencies, and I'm wondering if you're president of the Black Police Association? What is the official title?
It is the San Antonio Black Police Officers Coalition.
Okay, what were your thoughts? I should say your organization's thoughts when when Governor Abbott introduced House Bill signed House Bill 1927, literally authorizing, just constitutional open carry or concealed carry, but anyone could do it without a license and all. What were organizations like your thoughts on that?
Well, first off, on our organization, the San Antonio Black Police Officers Coalition, our main goal is just to be in the community. And that's our role. Political vehicle, Trojan horse, or anything like that, speaking out on laws or whatever any elected official may say or do, that's not what we're in the community for. Okay. But what I can say for me, just as an individual, and again, this is me because everybody can speak on that when you're speaking on that House bill that was passed. Again, every time I go to an incident scene or anytime I walk into the store, I already know that there's one gun there, and that's the one that I have. So that level of fear, as what I was kind of grabbing out of that, should we be fearful or afraid because this law has passed? No. Uh, Quite frankly, I'm happy to see when somebody does have a gun. At least I know that they are armed, versus turning around on me when I'm thinking that they are unarmed, and then later to find out that they in fact have a weapon. So honestly, when it first came about, of course, yes, the human side of me, man, was like, wow, this is going to be Wild Wild West. We're going to have Tombstone. You know what? This is straight up Texas. But since the ratification of that bill, and I see people, I was in Sam's just the other day, a guy had a shoulder holster, that's just as, again, this discussion tonight is changing with the times. And can we be fearful about it? And the human part of us, yes. But I personally don't have any problems with it. I teach my family and I will teach my kids how to properly use weapons and understand that anytime you pull that weapon out, should you need to do so, you better already have it made up in your mind that you're going to protect yourself. So I don't have any issues with the law, but I'm not speaking for everyone.
Can I answer? Can I reply to that?
Yes, please.
Okay, so I am an elected official. Look, I was born in Taylor, Texas. My dad was military. He served in the Vietnam. I grew up in North Carolina, in a rural part of North Carolina, and every male in my family, some females too, went hunting, deer hunting. That's a big thing. And my dad taught us how to. My sister and I how to shoot guns. I am not afraid of guns. I understand guns. As a kid, my dad had rifles, shooting rifles, hunting rifles. My granddad, my uncles, everybody. So it wasn't like guns were not a toy to me. Now, in moving back to Texas in high school and, UT Austin, law school, now judge, right? And what I see is just ridiculous. That law that officer was just talking about, it is in of itself, there is nothing wrong with that law, except for we are flowing in the wrong direction, right? Because as I see it as an elected official, there are some things that are just common sense. Common sense things, like I give you my background about guns. There are common sense things that we can do. For God's sake, raise the gun age to 21. Like, I have I'm a mother of 3. I have a college kid at Texas Tech. What is an 18-year-old need with an AR-15, 15? That is ridiculous. There are some things that we can do right now, just common sense. Why this is a problem that is unique to America, right? And there
Yeah.
are some things that we can do, like all those 7 little things that Governor Abbott signed into law, ridiculous, and we're going in the wrong direction. If you're going to go in a direction, make it the direction of protecting the children, of protecting people, right? Don't make it go in a direction of like, yeah, it's teeny little things, but those teeny little things are flowing in the wrong direction. He's over at the same time that these like this is something that I have 3 children, right? My older son lives in Austin. He says, and I always think about this, right after COVID, he says, oh my God, there's about to be so many shootings in America. And I say, why did you say that? It's like, wow, people have been locked up for a long time. And oh my God, that boy will never write. I mean, it's just like, and then we come out of it, and then we start immediately, there's rules and laws that are passed to make gun ownership easier, to carry gun. Instead of saying like, okay, like if a young person can recognize what's about to happen, you would think that a governor and all of his resources understand what's about to happen also, right? Like, hey, let's not make it easier for guns. Let's make it a little, like, you can still have your guns in America. The Second Amendment is true. However, no law is without some checks and balances, that we can put in common sense things that say like raise the age, a cooling off period, mental health. That, you know, there are some instances that the guns do need to be taken away. Look, I was the defense attorney for 22 years in Bexar County. I did criminal law. I had a case one time where it was this young guy. He got early onset of mental illness. Like, he wasn't, nothing was wrong with him mentally growing up. He wasn't in special ed, but when he got to the age of about 19, 20, they call it onset of mental illness. It's a black young man too. His mother didn't know what to do with him, sent him to live with his dad in Houston. His dad couldn't control him, and he was hearing voices. He got a gun. Well, that dad called the cops. The dad took the gun from him, called the police. The police got there and made the dad give his gun back. The dad was like, I'm out. Sent him back to San Antonio. Now, this is where it happened. He had that gun. He has mental illness. He took out the gun one day and shot his mom and his brother. Nobody died, which was, thank God, but now he has 2 aggravated assault, and I'm a court appointed to him. And I think about that case a lot because that was the mental illness, this young man. No one had the ability to take those guns from that guy. And I often think about, now I tried to get him mental help, and I filed paperwork to get him to have him declared incompetent because he was not knowing what he was doing. And I left the case by him. He was not put on probation for 10 years or anything. It was really a sad situation. Basically, they just let him go, was really what happened. And I often think, like, oh my God, I wonder what became of that young man, right? His access to guns in America, nobody wants to take his gun. To me, and I said to myself, as a lawyer, that sooner or later that guy was going to kill someone, right? I would always expect that, hear on the news that he was going to kill someone. To me, we know things. We know the laws, the things that can change and help people. But the elected officials are afraid to do anything, right? Like, if I had the ability, I would put such just common sense checks and balances on gun ownership, because the pendulum swings this way and it swings that way. And there are things that we could do today that will lessen the effects of gun violence in America today.
Yes, thank you for that and sharing that personal story. I personally believe that I can. You mentioned Second Amendment, and that's what you hear all the time. That when it comes to banning assault weapons of that nature. Look, that's not an outlier. We already have special category for weapons. And let me know the last time you ever heard someone say, you violated my Second Amendment right by banning sawed-off shotguns. Bet you never heard it. See, the thing is that I can tell you right now, we can talk about moving the age to 21 for assault weapons, because it's shameful that you can get an assault weapon at 18, but you can't buy a handgun until you're 21. No common sense to that at all. But I will tell you right now, I can prove that as much as they bark that it's a Second Amendment right for them to be armed, and I can even challenge that, because when you go back to the I'm not even going to get into case law. I really like talking about that. Maybe I'll bring that up at another time. But I can tell you right now that I can quell all of this Second Amendment talk by saying, keep your assault weapons. Buy them at 18. Keep them. See, I can say, but get rid of LCMs, which is large capacity magazines. If I say limit the magazine to 10 rounds instead of 30, instead of 60, instead of 80, limit it to 10 rounds, I have in no way infringed on your right to have your weapon. See, so now you're going to have to change the narrative. And I will tell you right now, it's amazing. The very same people that would be in an uproar about lessening that magazine, even though you are still giving them the right to ownership of that weapon and to be able to use it, are the very same people that don't have a problem putting obstacles in the way for you to go and vote, for you to have your reproductive rights. You see, but I can eliminate that right there as far as it goes with the Second Amendment right. And so, Pastor Brown, I'd just like to get your thoughts on some of this and just some good gun safety thoughts that you might have on this.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, I'm going to first say that many of our elected officials, in my opinion, do not work on the behalf of the people as they should. I think they are given over to corporations, or the lobbyists of these corporations, or lobbyists of, different organizations. When you look at some of the polls that have been taken, and just in the conversations I'm having with a lot of people, I'm a gun owner. Like the judge, my father taught my first gun was a 12 gauge shotgun. I have that. I have pistols. I've got guns. I've got a few of them. We were taught how to use them. My dad and mom from Louisiana, we go back to the country, our 40 acres, and we do some shooting. And he taught us how to do all of that. I get it. Love guns. I have them. But I agree. I think we can make some sense of some of this. Brother Al, but that whole guns don't kill people, people kill people. I didn't know what that meant in the 80s as a boy, seeing that on a bumper sticker. I didn't know this gun debate had been going on for so long, and it will continue. But you're right. Sure, the gun didn't do it. The person did it. But if we do something to keep guns from certain people, maybe we can help this situation, whether it be mentally ill, background checks, all of that. So I believe we got to hold these our elected officials accountable. We've got to go, y'all. Listen. I hear a lot of African Americans talking about, well, voting don't matter. Voting don't matter. Let me show you how I know it matters. As a pastor of a church, when it's election time, they run to the church to get votes. Why? Because they know voting matters. It matters. And I've got some other issues I could say with that. So we got to hold them accountable. And let me also say, and I heard Brother Al say this, that, and I've seen it, we're up in the uproar and then it cools down and goes away. I'm not sure this time, because it seems like this is happening now every day. Every day. And I think we got to keep the pressure on our politicians, our lawmakers every day to make some decisions that make sense. Now, I am hopeful. I'm a man of faith. And so I'm going to stay hopeful and that something is going to happen. I'm not going to give up. I'm going to remain full. I am one, and I'll close with this. I haven't done one yet. Matter of fact, there's a great sermon out by Terry Anderson, a pastor in Houston, Texas. Just did it last week, called When God Stops Listening to Thoughts and Prayers. It's a good sermon. I'll get it to Tan TV. Maybe they can share it with you. But I do address these things because I think as a pastor, we have to preach practical things, everyday things about how we're living, to help us get through craziness like we're dealing with. So I've got to hold our politicians accountable, and that's where I am with that. And we got to have some, as Judge said, some common sense stuff. And it's sad that common sense is common anymore, right? So we need some common sense laws. Home, keep things out of the hands of children. We have some things we put in place. I'm not saying take away guns. It should make it a little hard, a little more difficult, and take it to another level with that.
I mean, don't you guys think it's curious that the stats that are out, I'm a data person, I get into the numbers, that you can look across the board. When they take this data code, they do these surveys that, I mean, the numbers are just astronomical. 89%, and this is Republicans and Democrats that are saying, like, the age of the gun buyer should be, from 18 to 21. That they'll say also that one of the stats is that it should be universal background checks. So if it's the vast majority of Americans are saying, and this is Democrat, this is not a political, Democrats and Republicans are saying this, just common sense thing, then why are the politicians still reluctant to move? So what you have to ask, what is going on here? What is going on that when the vast majority of Americans are saying, yeah, we need some common sense, restrictions in place for the ownership of guns, just common sense. But what is the reluctance that Congress cannot get it together and pass these just common sense measures?
Well, I think any time that you have political people beholding to the gun lobbyists, the gun manufacturers who line their coffers, when you have that small amount of people that, what they say, the squeaky wheel makes the most noise, those are guaranteed votes there. And when you want to hold on to power, the way you get other people in is you pick something that people who would be staunchly against this whole gun thing. But if you say, I will take down women's rights to choose, then you got that voting block. And you're saying that should be enough to keep me in power. So power is so much to this. And I just want to get back to when we were talking about this House Bill 1927. And so many police agencies and organizations came out against it until lawmakers decided to do some amendments to the bills. And what they did, one of the things that made it palatable, made it more tasteful to these law enforcement organizations, is that they gave the police officers the right to stop and search, sounds like New York City stop and frisk, a person that they believe should have that weapon. Now, Judge Huff, you being the jurisprudence here, we know that oftentimes it's not the law, it's the application of the law. And when you have just a carrot given to you like this, to where you can, stop and frisk, and we know the communities, the numbers state that it's going to be primarily Black and brown people that are going to overwhelmingly have this happen to them. What role could you being a data person too, what role or how would this influence the justices like yourself when it comes to just say sentencing guidelines or anything, are just hearing cases when you have this type of thing happen?
If I'm understanding you correctly, what you're saying is that the officers at first were a lot of the agencies were against it, and then when this carrot came, okay, we'll take it now, we'll take it. And how is that going to play out in real life?
Yes,
the streets. And so when I was preparing myself for this panel today, I dug up some numbers, and one of the sentences that really stuck out to me though is this. It says that gun violence traumatizes entire communities, then it stigmatizes that system, those same communities. It's like, I'm telling you guys, I truly hate this saying, Black on Black crime. It is the stupidest, worst saying that did our community so much damage. There is no such thing as Black on Black crime. because people will kill whoever is close to them. And that's white on white crime, Hispanic on Hispanic crime. But why do we as a community get stuck with the black on black crime? Like that has done so much damage to me, to our community, because it inherently says that we as a people are more violent. I know I'm getting a little off subject here, but when you loop it all around, the cops are in their minds because people believe tropes. And if they think that our young men are more dangerous, they're more likely to act on that. Like in this, I have two boys. I have a young boy that I tell you that my youngest is at Texas Tech now, and he makes that 6-7 hour drive back and forth from from Lubbock to San Antonio. That worries me as a mom so much that he's 6'4". He was a football player. When people see him, what do you think they see? Not you black guys, because y'all probably see this all the time, but other races, when they see a black guy like that, 6'4", young black guy, that worries me, that trope of the large black guy, that he'll get in trouble without even opening his mouth. I say that to say this, that yeah, how it plays out on the ground in real life is not how that law intended it, or maybe did, who knows, right? But how it plays on the ground is that we always, some kind of way, we always end up on the bottom of the heap. And I don't know. Yeah, I know why it is. But it seems like no matter what, when America sneezes, black Americans get the flu.
Yes, Judge Huff, I'm so glad that you brought that up, because I would have to say that you've been eavesdropping in my household for a long number of years. I have always said to people, when I hear black people tell me about black crime on black, and I am like, and they will even cite me the numbers. 88% of all black crime perpetrated on black people are done by black people. And I'm like, of course, because that's who mainly they're going to be around. I can say the same thing about white people.
Yes, and people don't understand the statistics.
And then they want to go to the reported stats. Well, you only have to look at the numbers and you'll see that that's why you have more black people arrested and things of this, that nature. And I said, yes, because police flood their neighborhoods. When you live in officer-friendly neighborhoods, and Vance, that's your kind of neighborhood, you see it all the time. Vance has even invited me over, and I've witnessed officer-friendly stops little Johnny and says, hey, look, stop that vandalism, and just get on home. He doesn't get his information and take him in, and that's just one of the plights that we as a black community have to live with. But we've got to stop believing all of these tropes.
Yeah, those are false statistics
about us.
But everybody in crime kills who you're way more likely, and I don't know the specific number, to kill someone that is nearest to you in your community. So you can say white on white crime, Hispanic on Hispanic crime, Asian on Asian crime, because this I guess the officer could say this, that usually people kill who they know and who looks like them, right? That is just a statistic across the board. But for whatever reason, we got labeled with the black on black crime, and that's across the board for every race. And I have some more statistics, like black Americans are 10 times more likely than white Americans to die from gun homicide. And that's even more so, our black youth are 14 times more likely to die from some kind of gun violence. And then when you start breaking it down to the police, black Americans are 2.4 times more likely than white Americans to be killed by police. And we're 31% of all police fatalities. But look at what our population is in America. What are we now? Like maybe 14 to 15% of the American population, if we are even that high, and that's just overall. But we're 31% of the fatalities from police killings in America. And why? Why is this? I mean, we broke it down. We can look at public policy, because I really truly think it doesn't just happen in the vacuum. Like, well, deindustrialization, decriminalization of housing practices, white flight that left blacks in the cities where, like, you look at Chicago, Detroit, all these cities that have all these high crime rate, it didn't just happen. That wasn't a natural thing. That was truly government policies put in place that created this. And that's where it comes back to, now we're stigmatized because these policies were put in place 50 years ago. And then we create these cesspools, and then people that commit violence are more likely to do it. If you see violence, you're around violence, it perpetrates itself. And we're blamed for something that we never created to begin with.
Exactly. Because, the housing legislation that was, done, well, again, I don't mean that.
Redlining.
But when you get into this, Pastor, I'd like to know just what do you hear from people when they come to you about, the perceived injustices that are happening to them out in the streets when it comes to law enforcement?
What do I hear?
Yes.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I don't hear much in one sense. Here's what I do know. I was taking a class at the academy. I think it's the citizens class. I forget what it's called, with SAPD, about 13 weeks, I believe it is. What did shock me was one of the laws I heard, or how it's stated, as it relates to a police person and a citizen. And it seems so, what's the word I want to say? Subjective. If the police person feels their life is in danger, then a certain kind of force is justified. That bothers me a little bit, but I get it. That's the way it is. But until that law is looked at, really edited or changed, we're gonna see more of that happening. If you just feel, I mean, how can you in court argue against how I felt? If I felt like my life was in danger,
Yeah.
I get to shoot. That is too subjective for me. That is not objective enough for me. Let me say this. Phil, and y'all forgive me. I gave this moment at least an hour. I'm a little past, and got to get to something else. But the approach for me to all of this, it's a multifaceted approach. No one thing is going to fix it. Now, as a man of faith, I know prayer definitely is the number one on my agenda, the priority of prayer. Secondly, holding our officials accountable, pushing them. That includes voting, getting the right people in office, make some decisions that will protect our babies, protect our community. And then, of course, I like what Al said, and Al, I want to follow up with you. We've got to learn how to survive the best we can some of these situations. Because guess what? Hopefully it does. Hopefully it will get better. But this is where we are right now. This is where we are. Just seeing that stat of shooting with 50 people died. This is where we are. We've already started locking doors. If you're not in certain doors at our church by a certain time, doors get locked down. Only the front doors are open, where we have people now there watching who's coming in. Over COVID, we suspended our security team because for a while it was just me and the camera, streaming church. And we're trying to bring our security team back in. But it is sad that we feel it necessary to bring our security team back in. Posting somebody. Now, this may be a little controversy, with an AR visible when you walk through the door, just for an of, listen, this is not the place to play here. That's where we are, because I have to think about the gathering of our people and their safety and their comfort. Y'all, this thing has messed us up so much that we're talking about this every day. That's not healthy. Talking about these tragedies every day, that is not healthy. We are terrorized. Those kids don't want to go back into the elementary school. Some of them don't want to go back to school at all. And some of them are thinking about homeschooling. Think about that and the burden that's going to put on families. Think about Buffalo. I just left Buffalo, and when I got home, the shooting happened like the next day. I went to a Tops in Buffalo, not that particular one, but my point is, now these people who went to that grocery store to get their groceries, to get their medicine, to get just things for the house quickly, some of them don't have the transportation that we might have. Watch this, y'all. They got to be bussed over or Uber, Lyft over, or get somebody to give them a ride to another side of town. And come on, y'all, it's insane what we're dealing with and what we are going through. So that, y'all, that's my final statement for the night. Thank y'all. Thank you so much
Thank you.
for
Thank you for
including me.
coming.
I'm sorry I have to right now, but let's keep it going though, and let's keep
Problem,
it
Pastor.
going. All right.
Thank you, sir.
God bless you.
Chief Harden,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to just ask you one other thing, and then I'm going to turn it over and give the host an opportunity to speak. With your San Antonio Black Police Officers Association, you all do a lot of going out, as you mentioned, and servicing in the community. At any time, do you all take any of your white counterparts with you to try and just kind of show them and give them some insight to the cultural differences that may be out, with this?
Yes, thank you for that question. Well, I hope I can break this stereotype or myth that my white counterparts are not aware of some cultural differences, whether it be on the east side. I'm sorry?
No, you're fine.
Oh, whether it be on the east side, west side, north side, south side. I actually had a very interesting conversation since you put it out there with the white officer. We were discussing about Juneteenth, and I thought that was very interesting. But let me back up just a little bit. So sitting in my patrol car, I had a young man who had a warrant basically, but the traffic stop, young black African male, the traffic stop was because he was speeding in the school zone. So we went through the necessary procedures, protocol, or whatever the case may be. He understood that he had a warrant to go back to jail. It was considered a blue warrant. But we made some arrangements for his children. But more importantly, what I want to share is this. On our ride down to the magistrate's office where he was going back to prison, I simply asked him, I said, man, aren't you tired of this? He said, Officer Harden, this is all I know. So my problem is this, or my quest, my journey is this. I left this great city of San Antonio in 1986. And guess what? A lot of the east side looks exactly the same from when I left it. So how are we going to motivate our youth? How are we going to educate our youth? There are certain streets that are on this east side that have been that way since the 70s. I see these high rises going up, but I don't see nothing into these schools, into these children. What they believe is what they see every day is normal to them. And that's what we need to change or try to change as a community. I understand these gun laws and I understand this, but why, if we want to put it out there, why does it work on one side of town and it doesn't work on this side of town? You mentioned earlier that crime rate is going to be up because they're more exposed to black neighborhoods. Well, what would we say to those who may say that an officer who is white will more likely get into an issue with an African American because he works on the east side? He's more likely to get into an incident. So we can what if it all every day as far as how one is exposed to the other. But I always say to myself, how did I make it through? How did Pastor Brown make it through? Vance, how did you make it through? That's what we have to teach specifically our young African male men And one of the pet peeves that I have as far as being an officer and a Black officer that wears this uniform proudly and has a lot of pride in serving the community that I grew up in, we also have to come together and change this stereotype and this belief that the ops is out to get them, that the police is out to get them. I'm part of the change, and there are other officers on this on our department that are about change. So when you, I'm not saying specifically anybody on this panel, I'm using this word in general, but when we're telling our kids that, oh, you keep acting this way, that police officer is going to take you away. Stop saying that. You're instilling fear in that child already to the badge. Quit talking to them that way. Encourage the relationship. And I understand that there is a lot of data out there that can be collected, but as Pastor Brown did say as well, he took it one step further and got involved. Come and see. Come and ride along. I would love to hear, and there are other officers that would love to hear your input when you're out there and you're dealing with our, let's just say our own people. What do you tell them? What kind of answers do you have for them? What I would love to be able to sit down and talk to your son about is, how do you conduct yourself so that you get pulled over in a traffic stop? This is what I did, and God is getting all the glory that this is the result of it today. I'm sitting here today. I've been pulled over by police all the time. I'm not in uniform 24/7. But there is a behavior, there's an attitude. The problem is, or this is just me saying this, when we're communicating to our youth that the police is bad, police is bad, police is bad, and when you turn around and you have those that are out here trying to make those relationships, trying to make those bonds, you're ingraining in the children that there is no hope. There is no chance of change. So the title of this discussion was Changing with Times. Changing with the times. I suggest, it is my hope and my prayer that we stop creating a division, a separation based on principles that are true. I'm not going to sit here and say that there are not some officers out there that should not be here, but that's not what I'm here to speak on tonight. How are we going to evolve with the change on this police department? How are we going to change in law enforcement across the nation? That's a big mountain to try to answer because, as I said earlier, all training, all protocol, all that is different. But what we can change, especially in the city of San Antonio, is have this conversation. We just took 400 and some odd kids to the bowling alley over off of Astro Bowl with an organization, called Rising Stars. Those kids were asked, and these were like 10th grade kids all the way up to seniors. Before they were given the opportunity to bowl, they had to take a quick survey. Hey, what is your attitude or your belief about the police? And let me tell you, we got some answers, okay? But the goal and the objective of that event was, while they are bowling, we gave those children an opportunity to interact with the police. Black officers, white officers, Hispanic officers, Muslim officers, officers from different religious faiths. And I tell you what, just in that short period of time of those kids spending a little time with an officer, getting that upfront and close conversation and hearing it from a different perspective, not hearing it from social media, and unfortunately not hearing it from someone who's been incarcerated, that's in their family, that they've seen, that has been in and out of jail. That's normal to them. But then when they're able to sit down and have a conversation with someone who's encouraging them, who is trying to give back to them. These officers took, some of them took their own time of day on their off days to come when they heard that we're going to have a chance to talk to these kids. Because as I said earlier, we take these uniforms off. We're fathers, we're grandfathers, we're husbands, And so there's a human side of us that can relate to what is going on in our community. But we need to stop this division. I'll end with this. I see y'all, and this is just my take on it. This is just what I see. As I said earlier, I left this city of San Antonio to join the United States Army because I was getting away from the gang violence. That's when gangs was just kicking off colors and everybody was going crazy about whatever. All I knew is I had to get out of here, and that was my way out. But upon my return, the East Side looked the same. Why? What we are doing is creating a vicious cycle of stereotyping, understanding this is how you're supposed to live. This is your exposure. You are to repeat what it is that you see, whether that's living a family life of being on a system that is assisting you. I see these high rises all of a sudden being built up, some historic places that are on the East Side being burned down. You're burning down our history, whoever it is that you're out there. But all these houses and things of this nature, look at our kids. It's in our kids where we need to put our resources and our time if we want to break that cycle. If we want to educate them on proper gun use and say, look, you can't be buying this gun from on the corner because you know that your uncle did it before you, and you keep it in the house and you use it when you need to, and then all of a sudden you use it, and then you find out that that gun has been involved in some sort of crime, and now you got to explain that. We need to educate our youth on, yes, I know they allowed a lesser of a charge, and I believe this is in your court, Judge, as far as less than 2 having marijuana in let's just say in your vehicle, okay? But what we need to do is educate our youth that you have that little old marijuana in your car, that's cool. But if you're driving around with that gun that you bought from your cousin Ray, you've changed your whole world. Because in your mind, you think you're okay. One, because now Texas is Texas and everybody can carry a gun. And 2, it's 0 to 2. I'm not, need to be concerned about having this marijuana. Judge, correct me if I'm wrong. They just changed their whole lifestyle. They just changed their whole lifestyle on a traffic stop. And I'm telling you, these kids don't know any better. They don't know any better because they're repeating the vicious cycle that is not being broken. And if we say that we want a community of progression, we cannot make progress with division. And I understand that, this profession historically to the African American culture has not been a positive one. But again, changing with the times. I'm just saying, let's not stay stuck in a certain area that we can prove and debate and discuss that, yes, that badge at one point in time represented a very horrible thing to the African American community. I get it. But there's a change. It's changing. You have more African Americans that are being employed. I always get this question all the time. Where are all the black officers at? You know how difficult it is within your community, you being a black officer trying to bring change, and you're an Uncle Tom, you're a traitor, oh, you brainwashed, you this, you that. No, man, I'm black. And I've said this before. I support the blue, but I wake up black. I get it. I really do get it. But I know everybody's got all these stats and all this type stuff. I'm talking about real straight up exposure to seeing it in your face, seeing what these kids are having to live with, what they're being exposed to, the no food in the cupboards. Guess what? We're hunters and gatherers. I got to go get some food. The only way I know to do it is to steal, because that's what I've been taught to do. All I'm saying is I would love to see, whether it's elected officials, city officials, churches, nonprofit organizations, truly come together. James Baldwin said, I can't believe what you say because I see what you do. Everybody's on their own agenda. When that day comes that we can collectively come together and march together and make a difference, that's when things will change. Until then, there's going to be more funerals. And that ugly word that y'all said, black on black crime, it's horrible. It's white on white crime. Just the loss of life itself is what we need to stop. Thank you for letting me share. I hope we're getting to the end too. I'll be leaving on vacation tomorrow morning. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. And I think we can all gather that there's changes that need to be made on both sides, but at least we shouldn't forget that there is a history of legislating systemic racism in housing and socioeconomics that have caused the patterns that are there. And when we look at the lack of city, state funding to be specifically targeted to these underserved and underprivileged neighborhoods until our lawmakers decide that they want to add reform and do things to bring these neighborhoods and communities up to par and spend the dollars necessary to get it done so that those very same underserved people can start seeing, get an opportunity to get out and see that there are other professionals that they can be, that they can emulate. And until we got that taken care of to where the elected officials, and I'm not talking about you, Judge, I'm talking about the ones who sign the checks and allocate and the monies, decide that those communities have value. We're going to stay in that type of situation. Vance, let me turn it over to you.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you, Phil. Man, this has been great.
I feel bad. I feel that I've left you out.
Oh no, no. We good, Phil. I know you. This is your passion, man, and that's why I have you here as my co-host, man, for in the room. And we're gonna do a lot more talking. But so to wrap this up, I do want to give the judge, her time to give a parting shot, and also Mr. Stander's been with us the whole time, and I hope we have him able so he can be able to give his shot, and he's been listening to everything. He can kind of wrap it up for us if we could. But I do want to ask the judge one question. I mean, because we've been talking, and then I brought up about the kids, and this is one thing. That's me. I love the kids. I wanted to ask the judge because a lot of times mental health and mental illness is at the forefront when these things happen. So, judge, I know this is just somebody might be watching us and having this situation. If you have a child with a mental illness, and inflicting harm on themselves or a threat to others, what resources are currently available, say maybe in San Antonio or the United States, that can help these parents with this child? And also say if they don't have insurance or the knowledge of the resources that are available, what we can do, and what can you say on that? And also, you can give us your parting shots. I know you've been with us, and you have to.
Oh yeah, I mean, I would like to say that there in Bexar County in the state of Texas, there are 39 local mental health authorities, and for Bexar County, it is the Center for Healthcare Services, meaning that Bexar County contracts with the Center for Healthcare Services, and if people do not have insurance, they do not have money, they can get mental health there, prescriptions and everything, and be seen by a counselor for free. It's that your tax dollars pay for that. And there are 39 throughout the state of Texas, meaning that some counties, the rural counties, are combined into one. Like I think that the New Braunfels has the Blue Bonnet. I think it's called Blue Bonnet, and Austin has one. So these are throughout the state of Texas. I know that Texas, I think it's very disingenuous of Governor Abbott to say that mental health is his big problem, but then he cuts all this money, millions of dollars from mental health. We're like number 50 in the state. Like, you such thing as put your money where your mouth is, right? And mental health, me being the mental health judge, it is a huge problem. But that's because Bexar County, not the state of Texas, has done a lot to step up to help the mental health issues by even the mental health court, that people that enter judiciary with mental health issues, they can get help. That is here in Bexar County. And a lot of different counties in Texas do not have that. A lot of the other counties in the state of Texas reach out to me. They want to shadow my program. They want to hear what we're doing here. And I'm happy to give that to them. I really am. Because I want everyone to have this knowledge of how to help individuals in the community with mental health. But I have to say this, that I don't like this, like mental health to me is a scapegoat in this whole shooter thing, because mental health, people that suffer from mental health issues are way more likely to have violence perpetrated against them and not go shoot. It's like a little convenient thing to say that, oh, it's the mental health, it's not the guns. No, right? Mental health does play its part. But don't scapegoat mental health. If you really understand mental health in the world of mental health, you'll know that people that are suffering truly from mental health they're way less likely to go out and hurt others. And not said it doesn't happen, because it does happen. People with mental health do, but it is an issue that I feel that it's become political fodder. Just throw that mental health word in there. Oh, it wasn't the guns. It was just that person was mental health. And I really don't, as a presiding judge in the mental health court, I don't like to hear that, because I think that you're mixing mental health up and it's not serving the people that have true mental health issues well, and what has been done. But that's another day for another topic. But I'm glad you guys invited me to this today. I think it is very informative. I think that the issue of gun violence in the Black community is something that a lot of people have already said that's not going to be easily solved. I think there's many components to that, and it's long reaching back, and it's where we stand. It's like you cannot ask. It's like asking the slave to free yourself. Like, how can you get out of this situation? You didn't put yourself in this situation. It didn't just happen in a vacuum. Like I think the officer said about how the East Side is still the same. Now that problem, why the East Side still looks the same 40 years later. There are so many components to that, and it is like the people. I can go on and on and on about why that situation is still like that. But it begins with, there are policies put in place that keeps that situation like that. Until we really ready to address that in a real way, that cycle will just keep on, right? And the officer was saying when he said that, people say there are not that many officers try. Like in 2018, when I was running as judge, there was not even one elected Black judge in all of Bexar County. Try that. People need to see themselves reflected in things. Little kids need to see themselves reflected. I encourage people, bring your kids to the courthouse. Let them see a Black judge. Let them see that it's a possibility. Sometimes you just got to see it to believe it, right? I have no issue with officers. I like officers. They're always in my courtroom all the time. I have a personal deputy. Of course, every judge does, right? That, to me, anyway, that's a whole nother conversation for another day. But thank you guys for this platform today. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you so much. Go ahead, Officer Harden. He was.
No, I thought she was leaving. I was.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
It was a pleasure listening to her.
Yes, I just wanted to let you know how much I appreciate you talking about how disingenuous Governor Abbott was. I almost fell out of my chair when I heard him tell the people of Uvalde that he has all of these mental health resources available to them, not just today, not next week, next month, or next year. They will be made available to him. Well, I happen to know a little bit about that mental health field myself, and I know that its shortcomings there. As you mentioned, we're 50th in the country. Out of 50 states, we are 50th. And not only that, in April, he had the audacity to slice $211 million off of the mental health budget.
Yep.
This is how much this guy is really concerned about mental health. And, you know, getting to that, when they want to throw up mental health all the time, FBI survey showed that 25% of these mass shootings are mental health related. So I'm just glad that you brought that up, Judge Huff. Thank you.
Yes, we did. So now let's turn our attention to Mr. John Sanders. John, we really, really, truly appreciate you hanging in there with us. And let's see, you know, if you can wrap it up. I know you've been listening, and if you could bring us home and take us home. And then after that, we're going to go into another segment. And you guys, we really appreciate you, Officer Harden, Judge Huff, and also you, John. Go ahead and give us a party shot of what you have for us.
That was me.
No.
Oh,
John Saunders.
I think we're still having some audio issues. Mr. Sanders?
Okay, yes, it looks like it. So, well, I mean, once again, I want to appreciate the, Officer Harden and Judge
If I could just say
Yolanda
something,
Huff. Huh?
Vance, if I could just say something for a minute.
Go ahead.
We're going to continue on, and we want to thank, I guess, for being here. I just want to say a disclaimer that the extended version of this show, that our guests,
the audio is kind of breaking,
have nothing to do with this.
Tell me if you can hear me.
Sure, we're trying to get.
Oh, okay. Yes, we can hear you.
We can hear you, Mr. Sanders. Go ahead. Go ahead.
You can hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, we can hear you. Well, go ahead, Phil, and Officer Harden. If you, we appreciate you. If you got the dash, we're going and close it with Phil. He's going to give us a commentary. If we can get Mr. Sanders, we do want him because we want him. We want his contribution. So we'll have when we do the replay.
You can hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. If you can hear me, I'll go on. Let me
go ahead.
I'm not going to try to cover everything that has been covered because then I'll sound really out of place. Let me just catch back up. I realized, though, as my memory came back.
We hear you.
Okay.
Go ahead, sir.
I'll try that. You can hear me? Okay. Let me say this, and let me congratulate Alonzo for his present position. I remember when he was an officer some years ago, and I just had to key in that comment in when he seems to have a problem with seeing the change that over the last 30 years in that district. And that's why I had to type that in. That's, you've had, I know he remembers the old East Terrace, which is now Spring 30 years. I know he remembers Coliseum. Yes.
We hear you, sir. We hear you.
You're all going and close. I think audio is.
Yeah, we're sorry. We'll try it again on another day, sir. But right now we'll continue, and we'll let Phil.
I don't think
take
I
us
can be
out.
heard.
Yeah.
Oh,
Go ahead, Officer Harden. Go ahead.
one quick thing. Yes, Mr. Sanders, you are absolutely correct. Okay, but what I'm about to say, I'm just saying it from the heart.
I don't think I'm coming across.
This might cause another sequel to this conversation. You're absolutely
Can you
right.
hear me?
Springview Homes, Coliseum Park, the Wheatley Courts. Why? Now I'll just say it like this. I won't be so controversial, because what I want to say, all we're doing is it's a modern day plantation. We can afford plenty housing. I get that. The apartments and all that are going up. But where are the trade schools? Just on the other side of IH-37, you have the #1 tech industry that's being built off of Goliad and Southeast Military. Okay. When I drive around this community, as I do, I'm not seeing enough of us with trade schools. I had a man tell me in Israel, if you're able to work with your hands, you can go anywhere in this world. Okay. What I would like to see is that we stop promoting all these athletic initiatives, got our children thinking that the only way out is through an athletic scholarship. Let's talk about education. Let's talk about trade schools and the like. Yes, I do see those changes, but that's housing. That's just keeping us in the same spot. And I'll say this: what saved me, and somebody mentioned it earlier, is all about exposure. I believe that positive exposure leads to positive lifestyle, life situation. Negative exposure is negative lifestyle. Yes, we built some more apartments, but all that is keeping them right here on the east side. And I get it. We want to keep them here. But if we're going to keep them here, let's give them something that they can work with, a trade, to where by the time that they get to 20, 30 years old, they can talk about going into business for themselves. I'm great with the nice housing and things of that nature, but let's give them something to work with. Let's give them something that they can build a future on. And so I love this kind of conversation, and I'll end it with this. Coretta Scott King said, to measure the greatness of a community, it must be by the passion of its people. I am passionate about the East Side. And so I am not about division. I am sitting, let's come up with solutions. Let's get these kids involved. My passion is with the kids. And so if we want to see changes in the East Side, we have to be accountable, not only to ourselves, but to the community that we say that we're so proud of, and we're so tired of being second to everyone else. Collectively, we can come together and push this thing beyond where it needs to be. And we can only do that side by side with each other. Thank you guys for this conversation. I love it. I love any kind of conversation that's about positive change. And I can't wait to work with the Work is the New Hustle. That's just one example of what I'm talking about. That's how we make changes with the youth. That's where it's all at.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Officer Harden, man, we look forward to you working again, working with us. And I'm so glad you brought up Work is the New Hustle, because some great things coming out of that group, those group youths, man. So we really appreciate it. And we want you to come back, because you're the kind of dude that's willing to share that information, share that knowledge. And we had a platform, and if you're willing to come and share that knowledge, we would love to have you. And we thank you so much. John, we hated that things didn't work out with Yvonne. We will have you back, and because we know you are versed in a lot of subjects, so we will have you back, sir, and to join us and continue our conversation. And right now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to end this with a commentary from my co-host, Mr. Philip Townsend. And before he comes on and like to do a station break, you guys are tuned in to TAN TV, the African American Network, where we have a local feel with a global reach. You're in the room tonight, changing with the times. It was a great conversation, and we're going to continue. We want to thank Pastor Brown. We want to thank the Honorable Judge Yolanda Huff. We want to thank Officer Harden, and also former Councilman John Sanders. And now I'm turning it over to my co-host, Mr. Philip Townsend. Take us out, Phil. You're muted. You're muted.
I'm not showing that I'm muted.
There you go. You're on.
I think the host had me muted. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. And look here. We're going to be taking out, man. This is you. Close it and shut us down for the night. You're in the room with my co-host, Mr. Philip Townsend.
Okay, thank you, Vance. What I'd like to say is that in no way are any of the guests or the panelists that were on the show tonight are in any way associated or affiliated with the views that will be expressed by myself, TAN TV. Just wanted to get a clarification on that. I wanted to talk about this whole thing with the Second Amendment and all. It's one of the biggest fallacies that's out there. As I've said in the show earlier, that I can prove that it's not about taking the AR-15s, the assault weapons away that will get this constituency in an uproar. It has, if you were to simply lessen the amount of bullets that could go in a magazine, that would resolve that issue. That if you don't want to change that. But let me just talk a little bit about home protection and assault weapons and things of that nature. They talk about this whole infringement on their weapons. Assault weapons, they just don't have a place in regular society. They are a weapon of war. And there's a category. We have outlawed guns that aren't allowed to be owned and out, especially in public by citizens, with the sawed-off shotgun. So let's not act like that this type of restraint doesn't exist. And you never heard anybody complaining about their Second Amendment rights when that sawed-off shotguns weren't allowed anymore. So what I want to do is talk about the hypocrisy with people like Governor Greg Abbott, Ken Paxton, that's Ted Cruz here in the state of Texas. These people have no concerns about you or anything that happens to you. These people that I just mentioned, Ted Cruz, after the Uvalde thing, still went to an NRA organization to speak there and laud praise on assault weapons. Beto O'Rourke, he suspended his campaign, came back from out of state to go to Uvalde. And what did Greg Abbott do? Greg Abbott held a fundraiser that night and continued on with his campaign. This is your governor. Now, let's talk about the reason for this. Because gun manufacturers and the NRA, these people have lined the coffers for these elected officials. So they aren't going to do anything that's going to stop them from maintaining control and power. These people are people that I have deemed monsters. These are intentional monsters. They have no type of empathy for what happens to you and yours. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about that whole Second Amendment right thing. This right here, it's a 9mm. Personal home protection, it's good. Hold an 8-round magazine. Here's one that's got even more stopping power. It's a 40 cal. As you can see, home protection, 15-round magazine. Definitely could be cut to less. I think we've all watched enough Clint Eastwood movies to where we know this is a .357 Magnum and the damage that it can do. Again, personal protection. Don't have a problem with those. You get an opportunity to see the size of the shells that go with each weapon. You notice the more power, the larger the shell. 40 cal. Those are enough for your personal and home protection. There is no need whatsoever for you to be able to have a 30-round magazine and even larger magazine to fit in and go with something like this. There's no way in the world that a weapon of war like this should be allowed in the civilian population. Now you're probably saying, if it's not or shouldn't be allowed, what are you doing with one? Well, this isn't mine. This happens to be with me because the person that owns it for the last 6 years has left it with me because he doesn't want it in his household with his kid. Nowhere should anything like this be allowed. And what do? We don't even stop with that one. We will allow you as a private citizen to buy a 50 caliber gun, a 50 caliber gun that can literally take down helicopters, small armored vehicles. It's just no place for it. So, for those of you that want to cry that your Second Amendment rights are being infringed on, I can say to you, you can have that weapon of war if you want it. But legislators, listen, you demonic people, the people like Greg Abbott, Ted Cruz, that have the nerve, the temerity, the audacity to want to throw out mental health as the culprit in this. Yes, there are plenty of cases that show it plays a part. But the real monsters to this, the real demonic people to this, are the legislators that set up and put these laws in place. And it's time to change that. See, because they are the intentional ones. Now, if you want to pass legislation to get it done and get things squared away, I know the easiest solution to get it done. I'm not advocating violence anywhere, but I can tell you right now, the reason that nothing's changed is because they don't feel your pain. I can tell you right now, if those children in Uvalde, if those kids' names had that they were Ted Cruz's daughters, that they were Governor Abbott's young loved ones, if they were Mitch McConnell's, Lindsey Graham's, Rand Paul's, I guarantee you that we would have legislation passed in no time flat. These are intentional monsters. And I want you to do this. I want you to point your finger just like this and point it at that intentional monster. But you know what you'll end up seeing? You'll see fingers coming back at you. You are the unintentional monster because you are the ones that keep electing these people in who are causing all of this damage. And you are the one that can get them out. And until you, the unintentional monster, handles this situation, it's only going to continue and get worse. So while you're pointing that finger and you're saying, Mr. President, do something, no, you do something. Because until you, the voter, does the right thing and get rid of these people, we're only going to continue to see this carnage increase. That's all I have to say, because I may just lose my language here. But anyway, let's get it done. Let's get these people out who don't care. Remember, apathy up, empathy down. Positive apathy means negative empathy. So with that, I'd like to just conclude and say, don't forget, there is no place, when I say no place, for a weapon of war out on the streets. Thank you.